Hey, what's going on? Peace and power, elevation be to all you beautiful people out there. This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect. So today's topic, I am going to be talking about the civil. I'm going into the civil rights movement and the voting right activist of Mississippi. His name was Lamar Smith. So since this is Black August, okay, he passed away on August 13th of 1955. So that's Black August in itself. The man was killed in front of a courthouse in Brookhaven, Mississippi, all because he was fighting for voting rights against lynching. And after the incident happened to Emmett Till. All right. So before I even go any further, I want to make sure that I want to thank everybody that have been subscribing, sharing this channel, liking the video, etc. So I'm going over some reading materials that I have. I don't have a lot. So of course I have a Wikipedia and also have a book that you guys can look at as well. If you guys want to look up more information about Lamar Smith. So we're going to find out who Lamar Smith is. Now, when we talk about Black August not only just pertain to the freedom fighters and those who was incarcerated and lost their lives, but also those who were freedom fighters but never went to prison. However, they lost their lives in the line of duty. See, this is what activism is like. Because when you're an activist, this is what it means. Put your life at risk. Put yourself at risk for a possibility of anything to happen. But what we see today with most people, not all people, but with most people, is counter-revolutionary activism. It's counter-revolutionary. These people become activists in modern times when it comes to pay. When it's about making money, that's when the activism kick in. But outside of that, if it ain't about money, you can forget that. But these people that were activists during the 50s and 60s, they were poor. So someone like Fannie Lou Hamer, she was a sharecropper. She was poor. This guy who I'm about to talk about, he was poor. Which is Lamar Smith, he was poor. Medgar Evers didn't have a lot of money either. But these people put up a fight because they were tired of the oppression. They were tired of not being able to have their voices heard. And they wanted to stand up for what it was necessary for the people in their town. Okay? So now let's just go ahead and get started. This is a picture of Lamar Smith. So Lamar Dentney Smith, that's what they call him, Dentney. He was born in 1892, but he died on August 13, 1955. And he was an American civil rights figure, African-American farmer, World War veteran, and organizer of Black voters registration. So what happened? He was shot in 1955 in broad daylight around 10 a.m. at close range on the yawn of the Lincoln County Courthouse in Brookhaven, Mississippi. So here it is, a 63 years old farmer, okay, and he was a member of the Regional Council of Negro Leadership. So on August the 2nd, he voted in primary and helped get others out to vote. There was a runoff primary scheduled for August 23rd. On August 13th, Smith was at the courthouse helping other voters to fill out absentee ballots so they could vote in the runoff without exposing themselves to violence at the polls. He was shot to death in front of the courthouse. Now it says, contemporary reports say there were at least 30 white witnesses, including the local sheriff who saw a white man covered with blood leaving the scene. In spite of a public effort by prosecutor E.C. Barlow to obtain testimony, no witnesses would come forward. The three men who had been arrested went free. Smith apparently had attended meetings of RCNL, probably the largest civil rights organization in the state. He was also a personal friend of RCL President T.R.M. Howard of Mount Bayou. So in 2005, filmmaker Keith Beauchamp created a documentary, Murder in Black and White, of Smith's murder. In 2009, Beauchamp and the FBI attempted to interview witnesses in Brookhaven. In 2010, this murder came into the national spotlight when it was learned the murderer was related to the husband of Senator Sidney Hayes Smith, who made campaign comments which she claimed were jokes about public hangings and cast voter suppression in a positive light. And it says Smith's murder was one of the several racially motivated attacks in Mississippi in 1955. The other incident included the murder of George W. Lee, a civil rights leader in Belzoni, the killing of Emmett Till, a black teenager visiting from Chicago, and the shooting of Gus Courts, a civil rights associate of Lee in Belzoni. The Smith case was cited in the NAACP pamphlet M for Mississippi and Murder. Then it talks about the lack of action. Three white men, Noah Smith, Matt Smith, Charles Faley, were arrested in connection with Smith's murder. On September 13, 1955, an all-white Brookhaven grand jury failed to return any indictments. The district attorney reported that the sheriff, Carney E. Smith, refused to make an immediate arrest, although he knew everything I know. The district attorney further reported that the sheriff told him he saw Noah Smith, one of the accused, leave the scene with blood all over him. It was his duty to take that man to custody regardless of who he was, but he did not do it. Noting that all three of the accused were deceased, the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division closed the civil rights case in 2016. So, therefore, until this day, there's still unsolved murder regarding to this man's death. And so the people that was arrested, they was able to get away free. They were able to get away for free. They was able to get away and live their lives. And you know what else is really messed up? The woman who falsely accused Emmett Till of rape, they refused to even lock her up. I guess because she's older now and eventually she's going to die. They refuse to give justice. They refuse the justice. So somebody knows what happened to Lamar Smith. Somebody know who the killer was. But to this day, they refuse to come forward about it. All right, so I have a book that I want to show you guys. One book. I always like to give book reference. So this book here, the name of it is called I've Got the Light Freedom. by Charles M. Payne. Hmm. So let's scroll on down. As you can see all the chapters in this book. So as I'm scrolling down, I'm sitting here thinking to myself that all those who had been freedom fighters in the past, they have more balls and more guts to make the necessary change. Whereas we today, we wouldn't do anything because we're too scared. And the thing with us, we're too busy caught up in the pop culture. We as black people should be trying to fight to get an anti-black hate bill after what happened in Buffalo, New York, where those innocent people lost their lives. But instead, we refuse to do that. So let's take a look in this book. So as you can see in this page, let's start right here. In April of 1955, there were at least two incidents in which whites broke windshields in Negro-owned cars or broke windows in black businesses, leaving a note in one case saying, "You niggers paying poll tax. This is just a token of what will happen to you." On April 19th, there were a large RCNL meeting in Mount Bow, which lead an RCNL officer apparently attended. The first Saturday evening in May, he and courts met to talk about raising a fund to help courts and about a written death threat that Lee had received. Telephone threats were common. "You're number one on a list of people we don't need around here anymore," but this was the first written threat, and it worried them. Courts left around 11 p.m. And even though it was late, the Reverend Lee went to the dry cleaners to pick up his preaching suit. On his way home, a convertible pulled up behind him and a shot was fired into his rear tire. As Lee slowed down, the other car pulled parallel and a second shot was fired, tearing away the lower left side of his face. He died on the way to the hospital. The investigating sheriff said that the whole thing had just been an automobile accident, and the lead pellets found in what was left of his jaw were probably dental fillings. No need for an autopsy. Shortly after this, the woman best positioned to see the assailant, a Negro woman, disappeared. And then it said 10 years earlier, a killing of this sort might have been put down as a traffic fatality, and no word of it would have crossed the county line. By 1955, Delta blacks were better organized, better connected to concerned audience outside the state. Negroes trying to use the phones the evening of the killing were told by the operators that all long distance lines were tied up, so drivers were sent to officials of the NAACP and the RCNL across the state. When the news got to Mount Bau, Dr. Howell called Congressman Diggs, who had headlined the RCNL rallies a few weeks earlier, who called the White House in Jackson. Medgar Evers, the newly hired state NAACP field secretary, who was to cut his teeth, as one writer put it, on the Lee killing, immediately began gathering materials for the national press. When Evers and Ruby Hurley arrived in Belzoni, they found that many Negroes had been terrified by the shooting, but they also found that some were in vengeful mood. Before the funeral, Aaron Henry, president of Clarksdale NAACP, was worried about the mood of white people. They typically got mean after a killing. He considered appealing for FBI protection. It goes on to say, but for one of the first times, protection was not needed. There was a white man on the streets the day of the service, except for members of the press. There was a great turnout of Negroes for the funeral, and this presence of Negroes and absence of whites marked a turning point. So among the 1,000, perhaps 2,000 mourners, there were some who felt, frankly, that it was all the Reverend Lee's fault for making the white folks angry. Most were in a militant mood, though. The size of the turnout forced the service to be held outdoors, where they were interrupted several times by shouts of "he was murdered." The success and militant RCNL rally that had been held just a few days before the killing probably helped to stimulate turnout at the funeral. Lee was killed at a moment when black activists in the Delta were feeling their strength. Belzoni blacks, to protect the killing, stopped spending money at white stores. Instead of buying locally, they sent orders to Memphis or elsewhere. Whites as well as blacks were beginning to be hurt in Belzoni, and some of the loudest talking citizen council members were renewing their credit arrangements with Negroes when nobody was looking. And then it goes on to say, there's a lot that goes into this. So Gus Courts, about 65 years of age, went back down the day after Lee was killed. A Percy Ford of Citizen Council had warned Courts that he was to be next if he didn't get his name off their registration rolls. Instead, Courts led 22 Negroes for the courthouse to ask for ballots. The threats against him continued. When he found that no one would sell him gasoline locally, he got a group of Negroes to start pooling their money to purchase their own filling station. When of this got to the white community, they started selling him gas again. He was summoned to the local bank and told that he was to be forced out of business. When his term as an NAACP president ended, he stepped down and R.W. Reynolds took the job. The threat slowed down for a while, but after Reynolds was run out of town, Courts took the job again. So this is what it means to fight for one's right to be a voter and to register. This was not an easy journey. And I think we take for granted what these individuals have went through to get us where we are today. I think we really take for granted for that. I think we don't give enough credit to these individuals for the sacrifices. And it's funny that me and us said that, well, we was around that time, I would have did this, I would have did that. You wouldn't know what you would do. You would not know what you would have done unless you are in that predicament. Unless you walk in that mile in the shoes of these people. But other than that, many of us would not know what to do. Now let's look at what Regional Council of Negro Leadership is. Okay, let's look at that. Now, what was the purpose of the Regional Council of Negro Leadership? It says the Regional Council of Negro Leadership was a society in Mississippi founded by T.R.M. Howard in 1951 to promote a program of civil rights, self-help, and business ownership. It pledged to guide our people in their civic responsibility regarding education, registration, and voting, law enforcement, tax paying, the preservation of property, the value of saving, and in all things which will make us stable, qualified, conscientious citizen instead of starting from the grassroots. However, the strategy was to reach the masses through their chosen leaders by harnessing the talents of blacks with a proven record in business, the profession, education, and the church. At first, the RCNL did not directly challenge separate but equal, much like the initial stance of the Montgomery Improvement Association, but zeroed in on the needs to guarantee the equal. It often identified inadequate schools as the primary factor responsible for the northern black exodus. Instead of demanding immediate integration, however, it called for equal school terms for both races. From the beginning, the RCNL also pledged an all-out fight for unrestricted voting rights. 16 relatively autonomous committees, each headed by a respected leader in business, education, the church, or the profession, formed the backbone of the RCNL. The committees, in turn, reported to an executive board and board of directors headed by Howard. The RCNL's constitution stipulated that each town or cities with at least 1,000 blacks in the Delta was entitled to representation. To build mass support for the work of these committees, the RCNL made sure to hold its business meetings in different locations each year. Okay, so the RCNL attracted many individuals of ability and prestige, including Aaron Henry, a druggist, NAACP officer from Clarkdale, Mississippi, MZ Moore, an NAACP activist and gas station owner from Cleveland, Mississippi, President Arena Marlery of St. Junior College in Lexington, Mississippi, and President J.H. White of Mississippi Vocational College, now Mississippi Valley State University, in Alabama, Mississippi. For many, it was their first exposure to civil rights and a training ground. In contrast to later groups such as the Montgomery Improvement Association, the most RCNL leaders were business people and professionals. Relatively few were from the clergy. And it says the RCL most famous member was Medgar Evers. Fresh from graduation at Alcorn State University in 1952, he had moved to Mount Bow to sell insurance for Howard. Evers soon became the RCNL's programs directed and helped to organize a boycott of service stations that failed to provide restrooms for blacks. As part of this campaign, the RCNL distributed an estimate 20,000 bumper stickers with the slogan "Don't buy gas where you can't use the restroom." Beginning in 1953, directly challenged separate but equal and demanded integration of schools. So it goes on to talk about RCNL's annual meetings in Mount Baldwin between 1952 and 1955 attracted crowds of 10,000 or more. They featured speeches by Representative William L. Dawson of Chicago, Representative Charles Diggs of Michigan, Alderman Archibald J. Carey Jr. of Chicago, and NAACP Attorney Thurgood Marshall. Each of these events, in the words of later Marley Evers Williams, the wife of Medgar, constituted a huge all-day camp meeting and a combination of pep rally, old-time revival, and Sunday church picnic. The conferences also included panels and workshops on voting rights, business ownership, and other issues. Attending was a life-transforming experience for many younger and future civil rights leaders such as Fannie Lou Hamer. Then it goes down to say in 1955, the RCNL official, including Howard and Amazi Moore, played roles in helping to find evidence in Emmett Till murder case. During the trial, Manny Till Bradley, who was Emmett Till's mother, key witnesses such as Willie Reed and black reporters stayed in Howard's home in Mount Baldwin. Dr. Howard, referring to the murders of and Emmett Till and George W. Lee and the attempted murder of Gus Quartz, charged that the FBI can't seem to solve a crime where a Negro is involved. The statement angered FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, who credited the FBI with the virtual elimination of lynching in the South with breaking up the Ku Klux Klan in Carolinas and Georgia. The RCNL went into decline after Howard left the state at the beginning of 1956. Nevertheless, it continued to attract many of the state's prominent civil rights leaders, including Amazi Moore and Aaron Henry. The RCNL was still in existence in 1962, but was already pushed into the shadows by groups such as the Council Federate Organization and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. So basically, the RCNL was the SNCC before SNCC came into existence. It was the core before core came into existence. So that's what RCNL was, the Regional Council of Negro Leadership in Mississippi. And that's more that I'm going to post out more information. So I got to dig up. And I will come back to do later. All right. But anyways, that's all I have for the video regarding to Lamar Smith and his story, his assassination that took place in Mississippi. All right. So if you guys want to check out more information, check out more videos on my page, please do so. Now, if you don't think that is Black August, then I don't know what to tell you, because that is a form of Black August right there. I mean, that's Black August in itself. So just if you think that these people didn't do anything and you disagree with that, then that's fine. You have a right to disagree. But just know this, it's not an easy task or it's not an easy step to go against a system that openly discriminates against people based on who they are. It's not an easy step. So, and today, a lot of us would not even go against the system. We would not even make that challenge, because many of us would not have what it takes to actually lose our lives or risk our lives on that level. So we become complacent and we become docile. And again, in modern times period, we're so caught up in pop culture that we don't even pay attention to what's really affecting us and what we need to really do and how we can go about pushing forward as a people. But anyways, you guys take it easy on yourselves, be safe, And be careful because we got a new strain of virus out here, which is monkeypox. And so we all need to be careful as much as possible. Do what you can. All right. And until next time, peace and power elevation be to all of you. It's your girl Tiffany. And I'm saying deuces. And make sure you subscribe to my channel, like the channel, share the channel, and all that good stuff. And then make sure you guys share with your friends and family, or you guys have a conversation amongst yourselves. Or if you guys have any information that you would like to present to me or you like to share to me, you can do that as well. So I have no problem with that. All right. But be safe. Peace.